What's up, guys? Real Some Cheesy. We're now only 10 days out. Getting hyped, of course. And today, I wanted to actually go over story one and maybe some of the more small and important details that will hopefully get at least some of them clarified in this new story mode, right? But I guess a quick recap of story one, just in case you don't remember, just in case you didn't see it, right? It's just like what Eno, takes Chaos out of Ariel's, it wasn't in Ariel's nest, it was in the backyard, but they were tied, right? So she took him out of the backyard. They chat. They're like, oh yeah, you're gonna become God. So then they gotta go wake up Nago Ryuki, and then they wake up Nago. Gets captured. G4 summit happens where Asuka is, who has the tome. Spoiler alert: he fused with it. Shit happens. The White House is actually an interplanetary travel spaceship. Chaos gets the tome. Becomes God, gets defeated, bada bing, bada boom, right? But anyways, so some of the kind of minor things that were touched on a bit in the story that I'd like some more clarity was, first off, Axel and Chaos. They stated that they met in 2192, when Chaos, last time we met was then, but that's in the future, right? So Chaos is a weird character, right? Because he's been trapped in a window saloon for 100 years. He very clearly, if he's telling Axel the last time he saw him was in 2192, he must have time traveled to get to the future. So clearly Chaos can do that, or something's going on there, right? He also gave a coded message to Axel, to give to Axel, which helped give him clarity about what the Conclave was doing when they were trying to revive justice, as well as the original purpose for the second Holy Order selection tournament, which was the original Guilty Gear, right? That was the first Guilty Gear game. So we still don't know the exact ties to the original, because we already know that it was made so that they could sacrifice somebody to justice, but we already know that. So what became clear to Asuka about that original selection tournament that was cleared up from Zerd? And yeah, that's just something I'd like to hear, that encrypted message finally. The next thing is Happy Chaos's eyes. It's noted by both Chip and Anji, and when Anji actually sees them, he's Chip's just wait, those eyes, and then Anji's literally paralyzed, he literally can't move or anything. So then Chaos takes advantage of it, just shoots him, and Chip's gotta block it and almost dies, right? But again, what does that mean exactly? My only theories with that so far are maybe that they're awakened, right? We hear Nagoriyuki talk about that, and how Baiken's eyes have awakened too. We don't really, because he's your eyes have awakened in the arcade mode for Baiken, and we don't really know exactly what that means. It could be Delilah and Bedman's eyes. I looked into it. It looks like Bedman and Happy Chaos share a similar eye color, but a lot of people have that eye color, so maybe they just, maybe they've seen Delilah's eyes, and it just, maybe it was just so shocking that, the person that she's after is, a long-lost relative or something. So those are really my only two guesses on the eyes, but again, hoping we get clarity on that. Ariel being sane and realizing her methods were wrong. I didn't realize this, but I was going back and watching the story, but when she goes into, the dream, which might also tie back into how she, because, okay, just quick rant, but basically, we know that she was the one who actually took Bedman out of the dream world and was able to bring him into reality. She helped that process, and she's met Delilah but couldn't do the same. So interesting stuff, right? But again, so it makes sense why she can appear in Happy Chaos's dreams, but she says in that dream, the poison was taken out of me when you were taken, the poison was taken out of me when you left me. So again, she's not as crazy anymore. She's much more sane, much more robotic, as the GG glossary also explains. As well as she says, I messed up. She was saying I went off my mission. I didn't do the right thing. So again, with her being the universal will, and maybe finally realizing robotically that maybe these are humans, that maybe she did mess up, maybe she'll return to original purpose of trying to create everlasting, humanity happiness. We'll definitely have to see on that. I definitely like to, again, I really hope her conclusion just isn't done with her being in jail, and with her saying all this stuff in the dream, it really makes me feel like she is going to be released, and again, maybe actually help humanity and maybe be a good guy this time, right? So we'll definitely have to see on that. And then all the biblical references, right? We've got like Adam and Eve information bodies, which are like referring to soul, and then Arya, but like Justice Arya, right? We have Asuka, and titles are also very important in this like story mode, right? You have like, he's not Soul Bad Guy. Soul Bad Guy's dead. It's just Frederick Bolskara. You have, Happy Chaos, who's actually the original, or that man, but he chooses to go by Happy Chaos right now. You have like Asuka, right? Asuka's gone by the Gear Maker, that man. And now in this story mode, we're hearing that he's kind of just going by the devil. So, you have Adam and Eve, the devil as Asuka. We have Tyr Nanaug, which is like the Noah's Ark, right? Happy Chaos is the broken Messiah with his halo. It seems like there may be the idea of him's like almost like Jesus, right? Like he's kind of here to like take our sins, take all the hate that humanity's had for years and stuff, and maybe he'll die at the end, which would definitely be shocking and interesting to see. But again, see if that we get more biblical references, maybe, because if we get some more biblical references, we might be able to predict a lot of things for the story, right? Like I was saying, if Happy Chaos is kind of based off Jesus Christ, right? Like it might make sense if he does sacrifice himself in the end. And at the end of Happy Chaos' arcade, he also talks like he was a chosen, or Nakoruyuki says like, why have you been chosen? So maybe was like the original God who made the backyard, who made our current world, and maybe they chose him, just similar to how like God chose Jesus. Well, I mean, it was his son, right? But kind of like a similar story there, right? The next one is Kai wanting to announce his family at the G4 summit. I've talked about this quite a bit, but just seeing the results of that. Again, if we do see Sin, or especially Dizzy, I'd love to see what their thoughts on it, because I'm sure they're well aware. See maybe if they're preparing, what's their goal. See if they've informed Underworld Hill, because that's where we know a lot of the gears are. They're like, hey, he's going to announce it. And if it goes well, are they just all going to go into the public? Are they going to like slowly integrate? Like, what's kind of the plan? I definitely like to learn more about that, because it does seem like this is something that Kai, of course, is passionate about, but also has hopefully thought about a lot. And then Nago, when we first get to see or hear about Nagoriyuki, I guess, he's under the building, right? And Ino's like, what is he like on the top floor? Is he someone rich? And Happy Chaos says, the price he paid makes top floor rent look like peanuts. What price did he pay, right? And he also states like, he's been stuck underground for more than half a century. And Chaos has said that like, it's interesting because they're trying to obviously give us like, I feel like them saying like more than half, like I think Daisuke and the story team do have a really good idea of like the timeline and everything right now, right? Because like Chaos always says like, I've been stuck in, a windowless room for 100 years, which is probably like equal to around 100 years, probably a little more. And then for specifically Nagoriyuki, he doesn't just say like 100 years. He's not just gonna like exaggerate or say like, half a century. He says for more than half a century. So it's just, I do like that they're getting specific, and it can hopefully give us a good idea, but again, what was the price he paid? Why is he stuck under there? It does go into a bit in the GG glossary, and I do think what actually happened was Happy Chaos is the one who sealed him down there, but why? It was not consensual, so again, we'll have to see why he was stuck underground. Again, what price did he pay? And then Ino and Axel are mankind's emotions during the war, is something that Jacko stated. So we already know that, Ino is a hope for a better future. When they say, because she says like, she was saying something like, Ino, like all these commotion. No, she was saying that there was a sickness in the backyard, and like it was mankind's emotions. So they like gave him, they cut him off and then gave him a lot of authority, because they were like, had so much access and already were from the backyards. They were just given authority naturally. But they said Ino, so I think it was Soul. He was like, yeah, so that's Ino, right? And then she's like, to be more precise, it's also Axel. And then both Kai and Soul have like a reaction like, oh, what do you mean? So I do hope we get to see what Axel's, I guess, emotion is. Maybe I think it's like remembering like a better past. Like he brings that up a lot, especially in the Strive story mode. He's like, if I can get you to remember something, will that make you feel better? So I feel like that's that, especially because he can't go back to the past. I mean, he can travel, but again, just the idea of like a bright past, remembering that is what I think. But the reason that Ino's more, is stronger than Axel is probably because, while people like remembering the past, their hope for a better future was probably stronger emotions. So that also kind of fit in well. But again, I hope we do get more clarity about that. And as well as, excuse me, like, even though the original Happy Chaos knew that Ino posed a threat, why, right? Like, she was the idea for a better future, and he took half of her power away and her sense of self. Why did he take her sense of self away? And, like, why? I'd really just like to see the, the original meet Ino. See, was she, like, crazy? Was she lunatic? Was she just, like, trying to be, like, overprotective of mankind? But, like, why did he feel like that was the best way to deal with it? Why didn't he just take half her power? Why did he also take her, sense of self? So, again, be something interesting to see. We also get names for both the original versions, or like second versions of both Ino and Axel, because Ino's like, I once dated a guy named, there was a guy I loved very much named Will. He used to get in fights all the time. He had hair like a girl's, and at the end of the, when she's about to die, she's like, oh, it's you, because you have like hair, long blonde hair like a woman's. So, but again, so we know that the other version of Axel is named Will. I don't think they say it anywhere in the story, but they do like say it in the GG glossary, like, Megami's, Ino's other part. So very interesting. And Ino just says like, Will just kind of disappeared one day, and she's even like, the past that I remembered is not the past of this world. So what Ino kind of like believes, right, is this is like this is a fictional world to her. It's not her original world. It's not the real world to her. And like, she has vague memories, probably because she lost her sense of self, right, of this past. But again, why were these two lovers chosen? Why did they become the idea for a better future? Maybe the idea of a bright past. It does state that they swore their futures to each other, so that could be part of it. Maybe they were extremely in love, something like that. They also say that they like threw away their old lives and names, also could be part of it. So again, I hope we do get to see the original love story, kind of see that backstory, and see again how they became like two of the most powerful beings in the entire story, right? But yeah, and then Zato, when he says why, because he was talking to Leo about like his redemption, why he wants to change for the better for the post-administrative bureau. And Zato says like, why my friend gave his all to protect the, why did my friend give his all to protect the War Administration Bureau, when he was like talking to Zato or Leo about again why he cares so much. And that's kind of a little weird, but essentially it just felt kind of out of place, like kind of watching it again. And I wonder what friend he's referring to, right? Because I think he's referring to Venom. Like, I think that probably is it. Why didn't you just say the Assassin's Guild? Why didn't you say us? Because they weren't part of the post-war administration bureau at that time. It was after, right? So, again, interesting that they do maybe reference Venom. It could also be maybe something Slayer did in those 3 weeks. So, I'd like to learn more about, Zato's connections, what his friend means. Because again, he was saying like, my friend gave us all to protect the post-war administration bureau. So we'll see on that for sure. But again, they were the Assassin's Guild back in the day. So again, he could be referring to. But I just found that really out of place and really weird to kind of be said. And then Nago, when he's talking to Soul, when he's about to be defeated by him, when he like starts letting go of his grip, he's like, this is gonna be a long fight, but you would eventually win. So I don't want to be subjected to chaos in my life. So I'll happily throw in the towel, right? But he says, make sure to protect your leader to Soul, which is just, again, a really weird, out of place thing. Like, the only two ideas is maybe he was referring to Asuka, right? Maybe Kai, but maybe Vernon, I don't know, but I think that was more just him pushing his ideals onto, Soul, right? Since we know that he had a master, Kazuku Nosuke, which has been like, we know that he was a very powerful person, more powerful than Nago. And like some of the early data mines for Slayer, right, we hear that like he implies, I can't remember the exact quote, but it's like implied that Nago thinks that his master was even stronger than Slayer was. So Kazusunoke. I can't do that. I can't do it. But his master, anyways, right? He maybe was one of the original vampires. He might have, again, he was probably the one realistically who turned Nago into a vampire. And we also know that, like, he's also one of the people that Nago studied from, which then Chip has, like, remnants of from his masters. So, just like a whole information connection there, right? But again, very interesting. Hope we do learn more about Nago and his master and how that connects to Chip's master and Chip, of course. And then, of course, the quote he says earlier to Soul to Nago was like, so that old dandy isn't the only one left, huh? Which, of course, referring to Slayer. I'm still expecting to see Slayer. I'm sure he's going to have a lot of answers for us about like demi-humans and all that. And again, maybe he knew, because Chip's master was working because he was working for the Satsuki all the time under Slayer, right? So again, Slayer could also tie into that as well, and that could just be again how Slayer and maybe Nagoriyuki, maybe Slayer knew Nagoriyuki back in the day, so we don't know. But just interesting again that they went out of their way to mention Slayer, as well as of course the other two characters that were mentioned, Baiken and Delilah. They were just straight up name dropped, right? When Anji was, telling Chip that, like, oh, yeah, Happy Chaos, that man, that's the target of Baiken and Delilah's ire. And, of course, we've seen Baiken. We know she's going to be in the new story, but as well as Delilah, right? So, can't wait to see them. One thing, too, that Ino states when she's talking to Soul after becoming a god, she's like Soul's like, because, she has the tomb. She's like, I'm going to take the tomb with me. Just, like, it doesn't hurt. Like, I don't need it, but I just wouldn't be bad to hold on to it. And Soul says, like, it's not a gossip rag for gods. And Ino says some things as well, like referring to, like, multiple gods. So I'm hoping that we do get to maybe meet or see exactly what they're referring to. Because we know that Ino, well, at least did, right? She did have godly powers. She was a god at one point. And, we know there's at least probably one god that made the backyard, that made, the Guilty Gear Strive, lores we did, but would be interesting to see as well if there are multiple gods, right? So, shall be interesting. They also, Asuka and Kai, two of the smartest magic users, just finally came to this revelation in Strive. They're like, they both say this at different times. They're like, magic is the ability to bend the rules of nature. They are both shocked at this revelation, but it's like, well, obviously. But again, that's why I'm hoping we can get back to the roots of magic, understanding what actually magic is. And again, it's just really funny that, again, these are two very powerful, knowledgeable magic users just now, I guess, figured out or put together that magic is the ability to bend the rules of nature. Maybe they thought it was more part of the laws or something, right? But very interesting, very interesting. Hope we do get more on, I guess, the origins and everything about magic. Then, like, of course, the Flame of Corruption, but also the Scales of Juno. We know that, again, I've mentioned this a bit, but the Flame of Corruption is currently not in Soul, so Asuka has it. Is he going to give it to Sin? I think that'd be cool, but I'll have to see what's up with that. But one interesting distinction that both Asuka and Ino make when Kai starts fighting, Ino, when he goes Dragon Install, is they make a clear distinction between the Scales of Juno and then the Blood of Juno, right? So I don't know if anybody has the Scales of Juno right now when I think about it. I think Justice had them, so maybe it's laying dormant in Jacko right now. Maybe Dizzy has it, that also probably makes sense, but again, it's just implying that, I guess, if you have a kid, like, I don't know what they called, like, the Flame of Corruption, like the flicker of corruption, right? The blood of corruption, but it's just interesting how they made that distinction. And I mean, obviously, like, I think like Sin then has it, or maybe it's just because Kai isn't a natural gear. It could also be referring to, because again, there's an article posted where they said, Dizzy knows what's up, and it's implying that maybe Kai's like rotting, so maybe his body isn't compatible and it's literally just blood. It's a few drops. So again, like to learn more about what the distinction is between the scales, if only one person has the Scales of Juno, and or if like if Justice, Dizzy, and Sin has the Scales of Juno, and then just Kai is referred to as the Blood of Juno because he has less, or maybe it's just Justice had it, but learn the distinction and everything about that I think would be good. And when Jacko actually goes inside of it's either like, I think it's like the backyard, like a door to the backyard, but we see like those little like crosses. They almost look like Happy Chaos's glasses, which is interesting. But the only part that you can read out is like shellfish. Okay, shellfish, sure. And then BCE, so before current era. So it's BCE 7 million, and then like dash CE current era, like, and then the infinity sign. So I think that's referring to the population, or maybe like, I don't know why the current population is infinite, but again, I don't know why that was the only thing we could read. I don't really know if that's just supposed to be gibberish. I'm looking too much into it. But again, shellfish BCE 7 million CE infinity. Okay. And yeah, maybe we'll learn about why that's important, right? I mean, Oscar did say like the 2 in the backyard is just numbers. It's all it is. So again, it could just be numbers, right? But the final, well, there's a couple more things. I shouldn't say final. There's a lot of things I want to talk about, but they do say that one young man came to dig up the grave of Soul Bad Guy. I rewatched it again because I've seen some people saying that it might be Sin. I honestly thought it was Sin too. Like, I heard them like, oh yeah, that was totally Sin, but they never specify if it was Sin. They don't really give anything specific about Sin, so I'm still probably gonna assume it's Sin, right? But it could have been anyone, so that'll definitely be interesting to see. I do hope we get to see that scene, because I think it would be, it just seems like a very emotional, powerful scene, especially if we like follow Sin for part of the story, and then we see him like towards, again, because we know that part of the story is gonna be following like the after, you know, current events, following the events of the behind the scenes of story 1. But maybe he hears like after the G4 summit, Soul Bad Guy died, and he's so like heartbroken, because we've seen him, he doesn't really, obviously he cares for Soul, but he doesn't really ever show it like emotionally, just because he's not that type of guy. But it would definitely be really heartwarming, I think, and really be cool just to see Sin like be unable to accept it, like crying, digging up the grave, and then feel like relief when he sees that, you know, he's not in there. So definitely have to see that. Or maybe it's just some other young guy. So again, we don't have specification, but I still like to think it's Sin. And then at the end, you know, again, when we see Axel just chilling, sad that his girlfriend finally realized who he was and died, Megami, you know, the other Eno, comes up to him and says, you know, like, I'm gonna force my selfish way of life on you. And he's like, what the fuck? And then she's like, oh, well, that's what she told me to say. Probably referring to Eno. I did all the arcade routes, and I double checked again for Eno, because I was thinking maybe that was tied to it, because I did think it was Megami for a second, but I don't think it is, because it is stated a couple times that it's like a Paradox version, a past version of her. But again, maybe I'd like to see like how Eno got in contact with Megami, I guess, like how she found her, how she kind of put all the pieces together or something. Or maybe it was a different shape. We don't know, right? But it's probably, you know, so I'd like to see that, of course. And the actual final thing... Okay, well, no, 2 more things. I'll finish this first. Happy Chaos, at the end of the story credits, is back, you know, as we all know. So, of course, like to see maybe how he survived. He's a spirit. I mean, they could BS it. Like, his arcade mode is just literally him spawning in a Paradox world with Eno. So, you know, when they die, I mean, I guess you can't maybe kill a god or something, so... That's fine, is what it is, but, you know, again, I'd like to see how he come back exactly. Hoping they'll just skim over that. But final thing I wanted to talk about was the credit shots, because, again, we get to see, like, a few things. I don't think they're that important, but it's just kind of fun, right? So, the first one we get to see is Vernon, just with, like, Erica, the past president, some guards. Or we see, the only thing interesting to note there is one of the soldiers, I forget his name, he was like the guy who was like lecturing Giovanna. He actually is like back to normal, like we saw him get transformed by Happy Chaos. So I guess it's good to know that like the guards and the soldiers who were transformed are back to normal. Like, that's just nice, they found a way. The next one is Ariel's is like praying. She's got like her hands together, like in front of guards. That just, like, she doesn't look like she's in her cell, and those look like 2 Illyrian guards, so interesting. Maybe, I don't know, maybe they're gonna let her out, maybe they know she's good now. Just weird. Just a weird scene to have it. Like, they could have just had her locked up doing nothing, but no, they had her like smiling almost, it looked like, and just sitting there praying. So definitely interesting, and I hope again we do see more of Ariel's. That's also kind of giving me some hope that we might. We get to see Zato Milia, then, you know, visiting the Venom and Robokai bakery, so that's really fun. Even if Venom's not playable, I would like to just see them go and like chat. Something like what they did with Zappa, right? How we got to see Zappa be a big part of the story. And the next one's just Potemkin, like saluting Gabriel, nothing there. I guess we got Gabriel, so there you go. The next one's pretty interesting. We have Leo and then Dr. Peregrine, like the gears chilling together. They look like they're looking at books and stuff, trying to find something out. So interesting, right? I'm hoping this is not in, because we know that Leo did work with him a lot during Zerd. We didn't see him in the Strive Story Mode 1, but maybe they're saving for the Story Mode 2. Maybe they're all chilling currently again in Underworld Hill, waiting for gears and humans to be able to coexist. But again, that and the Biken map are just really helping me to give hope and like pray that we are going to see Underworld Hill. We are going to see these gears again. So I have to wait and see, of course, but cool that we get to see him. Then it's just Anji and Biken, which, I mean, Biken got added, so that's fun, right? Obviously, it's our old design still. We get to see May, Jellyfish Pirates, and then Johnny chilling in the background, so cool guy. I mean, we're probably going to see him in this new story mode, right? So can't wait for him. And then it's Jam Come, and then, like, some girl. I might rewatch the Zerd story mode, see if we've seen her before. She's got some cool hair, but I think she might just be, like, a waiter or something at Jam's restaurant. Right? Maybe she'll be an important character. We'll have to see in this new story mode, but she got like purple hair with like a little swirl on it, so hey, yeah, cool. Like I said, maybe she'll be important. Would be interesting to see if we get a new character like that. Then it's Faust and Cronus, which again is hoping me. I really want to see Cronus in this new story mode, see what he thinks about Happy Chaos, see exactly what he said to Faust, all that. So hey, hopefully again that's a nod that he will at some point appear in this new story mode, because at the end of Zerd we did see him chilling with Faust, you know, planning to like travel the world and like gain some clarity. So again, like to see what's up with him. And then it's Chip and Answer, and it makes sense. My theory is I do think out of anybody that's gonna have like the Zappa situation where like we'll see him in the story and they won't be playable, it'd probably be Answer. I do want to see Answer playable. I do think he's a cool character. They're not saying that, Liz, I swear. Right? But the thing is Answer, Chip went off on like a diplomatic thing. Like obviously Answer probably knew some BS, but him and Anji went away, so it was probably, you know, Answer doing Answer things and holding down the fort back at home. So maybe since, you know, obviously there's still Vikings kind of staying with them as well. Then with Lila, we might get to see Answer in the story, so that'd be cool. Then we get to see Slayer and Sharon, so they're just by themselves, man. They're just vibing, so I don't know. I'm also really confident we can see them in the new story. And then we get to see Raven by himself. It looks like he's standing like in Illyria, so I mean, a lot of people want to see him back. He was a cool character, and I just didn't like how they kind of treated him in Zerd. Like, I get it was funny that he like damage and all, but he was just such like a serious character and all that, and I just feel like it kind of hurt it. But again, I'd like to see him back. He was funny, I'll admit, and I do hope we get more with him in the story. Again, is he a demi-human? You know, exactly what does he know? Why did he choose Oscar? All that. So I'd like to see him again for sure. And then we get to see at the end like Daryl Zappa and then like the big cake that they were trying to make in one of these shorts at the end of story 2 or Zerd, one of the shorts. So guess they made the giant cake that they were trying to do to break the record. So that's fun. And we just see Zappa's back, but you know, little nod at him, of course. And finally we get like the Ramson, Elfelt Kai Testament hiding in the background, and then Dizzy, right? So just a cute thing. And again, since Ram's in there with Sin and Elfelt and Dizzy, hopefully we get to see some of them in the new story, right? But yeah, that's pretty much everything. Like I said, I just kind of wanted to point out some of the smaller details, see if they're kind of point us to anything in the story, things to look out for this new story. Again, we're almost less than 10 days out, so super hype about it. Hope you all are still hyped about it, and yeah, love y'all a lot for watching these, keeping up with these, and hey, take care.